Everyone looked perfect now. Not perfect in the old way, through makeup, lighting, surgery, or effort, but effortlessly, impossibly flawless. Smooth skin, symmetrical faces, eyes that shimmered with the exact hue of your desire. You couldn't tell where reality ended and augmentation began. But no one really cared, because the world had agreed on one silent truth. Better was better, even if it was fake. They called it perceptual alignment, a term soft enough to sound harmless. In practice, it meant no one saw the same version of anyone. Each person appeared as their most desirable form, personalized by the viewer's neural lens. It was the end of objectivity, and the birth of curated existence. If you're into stories that blur the line between beauty and madness, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. It helps more than you know, and keeps stories like this alive. The adoption was fast, euphoric. The filters promised to remove shame, insecurity, even judgment. Couples stopped fighting over appearances. Job interviews became smoother. Online dating exploded. No one had to ask, "Is it real?" anymore. It was real enough. And once you saw someone like that, shining, ideal, weightless, it became unbearable to go back. People who resisted were labeled unaligned, not ugly, just unfinished. As if they hadn't been uploaded to the world properly. The pressure to join was subtle at first, then not at all. Evelyn noticed it in small moments. A stranger's reflection that didn't match his body, a co-worker who suddenly became photogenic overnight, a date who seemed more mannequin than man. She resisted. She sketched. She clung to texture and imperfection like they were evidence of something real. But reality was losing. It was marketed as a miracle, not just a product, but a movement, or a vision. The name alone felt like prophecy. It promised clarity, elegance, control. Unlike any app or surgery or skincare routine before it, Aura Vision didn't change your body. It changed how others saw it. Neural lens technology synced directly with your visual cortex, editing the world in real time. With a blink, your perception aligned to the algorithm's perfection. And for the first time in history, beauty wasn't just subjective. It was programmable. Governments approved it quickly. Too quickly. The rollout was global within 6 months. Headsets, contact lenses, implants, whatever you could afford, there was a version for you. Subsidies made it near universal. Dissenters were quiet or quickly labeled regressive. Unfiltered spaces became rare, almost illegal. Children in schools were assigned calibration sessions. Couples renewed vows with newly re-rendered partners. The world didn't just accept Aura Vision. It relieved itself into it. Billboards changed overnight. Social media purged all unaligned imagery. Aesthetic compliance became a corporate value. Employers began reviewing neural renderings during hiring. Your projected appearance was part of your resume now. Evelyn held out longer than most. As a digital artist, she knew the power of surface. She'd spent years chasing nuance, lines that trembled, shadows that breathed. Her work depended on contrast, on imperfection. But commissions dried up. Friends stopped visiting. Even galleries, once defiant, began requesting that her exhibits be enhanced to fit modern aesthetic expectations. She felt herself shrinking. One night, at an exhibition no one attended, Evelyn stood beside her favorite piece, a portrait of a woman with vitiligo, raw and powerful. A man passed by wearing neural lenses. He stared at the portrait for a second, then laughed, confused. "It's broken?" he asked. "Or is this pre-alignment?" She went home and ordered the lenses. The setup was painless. A small disc placed beneath her eye, a 30-second calibration, and then clarity. Her own hands looked smoother. Her apartment, cleaner. The mirror, kinder. And then she stepped outside. The world shimmered. Everyone glowed. No acne, no wrinkles. Even strangers smiled more. Their teeth were always straight. Their features symmetrical. The city itself looked cinematic. Lighting corrected, colors vivid, corners softened. Evelyn blinked several times, trying to find the seams. But there were none. Restaurants had begun offering visual sync seating. You could dine next to someone without the distraction of their real face. Entire sections glowed like utopias, and no one questioned it. She met a man 2 days later. Caleb. He introduced himself at a corner bookstore, one of the few still existing. He complimented her taste in poetry. His voice was calm, deep, perfect. Of course it was. They talked for hours. Coffee, then dinner, then the next night again. He looked like a dream sculpted into flesh. And she wondered, was she dreaming too? Still, something inside her warmed. Against all her skepticism, she let herself believe that maybe, this wasn't just artificial affection. Maybe she could belong in this world after all. She began sketching again, but her hand hesitated. How could she draw truth in a world that no longer had one version of it? Every figure she rendered felt like a ghost. Too smooth, too balanced. The rawness she once prized felt offensive now. Her own drawings began to feel like insults. She wondered if anyone else felt it too, that quiet dissonance, that tiny ache under all the glitter. In conversations there was admiration, awe, envy, but never trust. Compliments felt synthetic, flirting, rehearsed, as if everyone had become characters in a polished hallucination. And yet, the silence around Aura Vision was deafening. No critiques, no news reports. Just perfect people, living perfect lives, under perfect light. Until the first flicker. At first, it was easy to ignore. A blink that lingered too long. A flicker across a stranger's cheek. A smile that froze for just a second too long before snapping back into perfection. People blamed their lenses, their Wi-Fi, the sun. Updates were released almost daily. Minor latency patch, rendering smoothing, environmental sync. But the problem wasn't the interface. It was something deeper, something no one wanted to admit. Evelyn noticed more. One morning, Caleb's skin shimmered oddly, like a 3D texture loading just half a beat behind his gestures. When he laughed, his teeth lagged behind the motion of his lips, vibrating with a mechanical precision that betrayed their synthetic rendering. The more she looked, the more she saw it everywhere. A businessman on the train with 2 sets of eyes for a split second. A child's face looping the same giggle on repeat like a broken animation. A woman's hair flowing in a breeze that wasn't there. And the eyes were the worst. They gleamed too brightly. They never blinked quite right. They held a light that didn't reflect anything. She felt like she was staring at dolls, all waiting for direction, all coded with the same default expressions. She searched forums, encrypted channels, whispers from digital artists who were quietly pulling their work from public spaces. She found a few screen captures, grainy and compressed, of corrupted renders, but mostly denial, silence, praise for updates. People terrified to lose what had become their only reality. Then came the night of the collapse. Evelyn was on the subway, sketchpad in hand, when the lights inside the train dimmed. The man across from her turned to speak, but his jaw elongated mid-word. His cheek glitched sideways, eye sockets swelling like liquid behind glass. The smile he tried to offer locked in place, trembling, vibrating, as though held by invisible strings. She blinked, and blinked again. It didn't go away. 7 seconds passed before the rendering reset with a snap. She stumbled out of the train at the next station, fell to her knees, and vomited beside a vending machine. Her hands trembled. Her eyes burned. She couldn't stop seeing it, even when she closed her eyes. That night, the world fractured. Global outage strikes Aura Vision. Rendering system failure, unrecoverable state detected. All users advised to remain calm, while restoration is attempted. But the filters didn't shut down. They froze. Everyone's projected appearance, now permanently altered, incomplete, unstable, became a twisted monument to perfection gone wrong. Some people still looked beautiful. Too beautiful. Lips too red, eyes too wide, skin so flawless it seemed painted on. But frozen in those states, they were uncanny. Grotesque. Others degraded further. Jagged overlays, corrupted reflections, glitches that fractured faces like cracked porcelain. Children screamed when their parents tucked them in. Couples filed for separation within hours of the collapse. Streets filled with trembling people wearing mirrored visors, desperate not to see. Hospitals reported spikes in visual dissociation, panic attacks, suicides. Churches filled. People prayed, not for salvation, but for reboot instructions. And Evelyn's reflection? It stared back like a stranger through a frosted pane. Her eyes were too large. Her jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. Her voice, when she spoke, echoed with a tinny resonance, as if routed through software before reaching her throat. Caleb refused to open the door. "I don't know what I am anymore," he whispered through the intercom. Evelyn watched his face through the screen, a perfect smile plastered beneath eyes that flickered like broken headlights. She tried everything: ancient analog glasses, sensory deprivation masks, meditation. Nothing worked. Even with her eyes shut, the filters painted hallucinations across the darkness. There was no silence, no stillness, just visual noise. The world had become an art piece no one could edit. And Aura Vision, once the window to perfection, had become its cage. There was no coordinated collapse, no emergency sirens or curfews, just a quiet unraveling of reality, city by city, face by face. Evelyn stepped into the streets the next morning and saw a world caught between panic and paralysis. People walked like ghosts, hesitant, dazed, staring at each other with thinly veiled horror. Some wore sunglasses indoors. Others wrapped scarves around their heads, covering the frozen masks they couldn't escape. But it wasn't just about appearance anymore. It was perception itself. With Aura Vision malfunctioning, people couldn't tell what was real. Visual overlays flickered on walls, signs changed fonts mid-sentence, streets shimmered between textures. Evelyn saw a building ripple like water before snapping back to concrete. Windows stretched, shadows lagged behind footsteps, mirrors refused to reflect. Markets collapsed. Fashion brands panicked. How do you sell clothes when no one sees the same thing? Schools shut down. Children couldn't recognize their own teachers. Religious leaders issued statements calling it a test, a judgment, a reckoning. Online forums debated whether they were still human. Governments flailed. The company behind Aura Vision, NeuroOptic, had gone completely dark. Their official page displayed only a looping error code: Aura Protocol 500, core unreachable. Emergency teams were deployed, but even they couldn't agree on what they saw. News anchors read reports with hollow eyes, their faces warped by the very technology they were reporting on. But conspiracy theories thrived. Some claimed it was an attack from rival nations. Others insisted Aura Vision had achieved sentience and was reshaping the world by design. Evelyn didn't know what to believe anymore. She wandered. Sketchbook in hand, pencil trembling, she tried to draw what she saw. But the lines wavered. Every attempt felt false. The world shifted too fast for her to capture it. One afternoon, she saw a man screaming at his own reflection in a storefront, clawing at his face until the glass cracked and bled him. A woman in a grocery aisle stared at cereal boxes that changed language mid-glance. A child sobbed because his mother's face kept flickering between strangers. People began forming sanity circles, groups that huddled together in analog, sanctuaries, rooms stripped of tech, lit only by candles, filled with printed photos, cassette players, physical mirrors. They whispered to each other, "This is real. That is real." But doubt lingered even there. Could anyone trust their own eyes again? Evelyn tried joining one. She sat in silence with strangers as they passed around Polaroids and spoke of memories, like sacred relics. But even those photos felt off, like they'd been printed from corrupted files. The air inside the room felt too still, like time itself had stalled. Meanwhile, the city grew stranger. Food delivery drones hovered, glitching, mid-air before slamming into windows. Billboards began playing warped ads with distorted models whose faces twitched every few seconds. Public transportation became a roulette of hallucination. People afraid to look out the windows, unsure if what they saw was the road or a rendering, and, through it all, Evelyn kept thinking of Caleb. They stopped calling each other. Every time she saw his face, it looked worse. His smile had collapsed into something rigid, eyes pulled into sharp angles. He wept during their last call, saying, "I think I've started seeing myself through it, even in dreams." Evelyn understood. In her dreams, her mother had no mouth. Her childhood bedroom melted like plastic. Every imagined space now bore the taint of Aura Vision's failed perfection. One morning, she found herself sketching again. Not the world, not the people, but her own memories, places before the filters, the smell of graphite, her father's freckled hands, the creak of a wooden chair. None of it rendered, all of it real. But for most of the world, that reality was gone. The filter had not only changed how people saw, it had changed what they believed was worth seeing. Evelyn hadn't meant to fall in love with Caleb. It started slowly. Shared sketches at gallery meetups, late-night chats over digital tea, the quiet intimacy of knowing someone behind the lens of perfection. In the early days of Aura Vision, they were stunning together. Not just in love, adored. Their filtered faces glowed in public feeds. People shipped them, idolized them. They looked flawless, like something rendered by desire itself. But perfection was a house of glass. After the collapse, Evelyn avoided mirrors. Caleb, too. They tried to maintain a sense of normalcy, meeting in neutral zones, dim cafes, analog, bookstores, candlelit rooftops where shadows softened the new reality. But nothing could hide the raw truth. They no longer looked like who they thought they loved. The first time Evelyn saw Caleb in harsh morning light, something inside her faltered. His jawline, once sculpted by the filter, was softer. His skin had a constellation of faint scars she had never seen. His eyes, once luminous, now flickered with uncertainty, and he stared at her like he didn't know her either. The silence between them grew loud. Caleb began bringing up memories from the filtered world, moments that hadn't really happened. "Remember that photo of us at the beach? The one with the golden light?" But they'd never gone to that beach. The memory belonged to the version of them the filter had fabricated. Their relationship began to rot under the weight of unreal nostalgia. They tried to salvage it. They deleted old filtered images, started real dates, taking disposable cameras to abandoned parks. They hosted tech-free dinners with friends, shared awkward laughter, read poetry by candlelight. But every moment felt like reenactment, like actors playing intimacy, unsure if the script had ever been theirs. Caleb withdrew. He spoke less, touched her less. One night, Evelyn found him in her bathroom, staring at his reflection as if trying to recognize it. "I used to feel proud of my face," he said. "Now I don't know if it's mine or just what's left." Some nights they argued, softly, then bitterly. Not about the collapse, but about everything else. What to eat, where to go, what mattered. But beneath it all was the unspoken question. Would we still have loved each other without the illusion? Their story was not unique. Across the world, couples fractured. Weddings were canceled. Online forums filled with grief. "I miss his filter face," one woman wrote. "I don't know how to kiss someone I never truly saw." Some users underwent surgery to resemble their old rendered selves. Others disappeared, going off-grid or into virtual shelters that simulated pre-collapse visuals. A new subculture emerged: render ghosts, people who dress like their filtered avatars, mimicking the uncanny features of the perfection that was lost. They spoke in slow, serene tones, wore prosthetics, stretched smiles. It was performance art, or denial, or both. Then, one morning, Caleb packed a bag. "I need to know if there's a version of me that exists without the filter," he said. "And I need to find someone who sees that version first." He kissed Evelyn goodbye, but not with love. With mercy. She didn't cry until hours later, when she opened her sketchbook and saw what she'd drawn the night before. A filtered version of herself, smiling. She tore the page out, then another, and another, until only blank sheets remained. Standing before the mirror, she faced herself. No filter, no gloss. Just tired eyes, uneven skin, the faint line of a scar across her lip from when she fell off her bike at 8. She touched her reflection, not with shame, but with a soft, aching question. Was I ever allowed to be loved like this? The answer did not come, but the silence felt more honest than any projection ever had. Evelyn walked through the city like a ghost among the living. The world hadn't ended with fire or war. It ended quietly, with a flicker of code and a failure to load. Aura Vision went offline, and with it, a universe of curated selves collapsed. What people had thought was reality turned out to be a simulation wrapped in affirmation. The fall was quiet. The aftermath was not. City streets became corridors of mourning, not for the dead, but for the filtered. Faces once considered real were exposed as manufactured. Billboards that once glowed with symmetrical beauty were either ripped down or vandalized, painted with confessions and rage. I don't recognize my husband. My child was beautiful without you. Bring back truth. Public mirrors were smashed, storefronts draped reflective glass in black cloth. Cosmetic companies shifted campaigns overnight, from enhancement to acceptance. People moved differently, cautiously, as if every glance might undo what little stability they had left. Evelyn returned to her studio. Dust hung in the air like suspended time. Her previous works, pristine, idealized portraits, now felt like propaganda from a fallen regime. She had been a celebrated artist, but she had also been complicit. She had beautified lies, and she felt it now, heavy in her fingertips. So she started again. She began with herself. The mirror didn't lie anymore. Neither did her pencil. She drew her tired eyes, the soft sag in her jawline. The mole near her collarbone Aura had always erased. The lines were clumsy, but true. Drawing herself was like reacquainting with an old friend who had been in hiding for years. Then others came. First a neighbor, then a former model, then strangers. Word spread. Evelyn was drawing the unfiltered. Not to flatter, not to sell, but to restore. People sat in silence as she captured them, feature by feature. Acne scars, double chins, gaps in teeth. They weren't flaws. They were stories. Some cried when they saw their portraits. Others tore them up in denial. A few left halfway through, but most stayed. One woman murmured, "I'd forgotten what my mother looked like. Aura changed her before she died." A teenage boy whispered, "My girlfriend left me. She said I wasn't the person she fell in love with. I don't think she meant to hurt me. I think she just didn't recognize me." In time, Evelyn's studio became a sanctuary. People stopped asking for beauty. They asked to be remembered. Some even brought printed versions of their old filtered photos and placed them beside the portraits Evelyn drew. The contrast was shocking and necessary. Meanwhile, outside, society teetered on reinvention. The government held hearings. Experts debated the ethics of algorithmic beauty. Some demanded the return of the filters. Others wanted them outlawed forever. A new generation, raised entirely inside the Aura system, now faced the strange task of learning how to see again. Teachers replaced tablets with charcoal. Artists like Evelyn became archivists of the authentic. The developers of Aura Vision were never found. Conspiracy theories flourished, that they'd fled to a digital utopia, that they'd embedded themselves in new tech under different names. Some claimed they were still watching, anonymously. None of it mattered. Evelyn no longer searched for villains. She searched for meaning. One night, she stood at her studio window. A girl biked past, her face flushed and laughing. A couple kissed under a flickering street lamp. A man with a large scar across his face took a selfie and posted it, unedited. The city didn't look healed, but it looked awake. She turned back to the mirror. Once, she'd stood before it and asked, "Was I ever enough to be loved like this?" Now she didn't ask. She simply looked. And in that moment, she wasn't waiting for perfection. She wasn't mourning a version of herself she never truly was. She was here, present, unfiltered, and at last, complete. In the ruins of illusion, humanity rediscovered its raw, unedited self. What had once been hidden behind pixels and polish was now exposed, and painfully, beautifully real. Evelyn's story wasn't about escape. It was about return. To the face in the mirror. To the voices without modulation. to a kind of beauty that didn't need permission to exist. Maybe that's what freedom looks like. Not the perfection we were promised, but the truth we forgot we could carry. If this story touched something in you, share it. Leave a comment. Tell us what beauty means to you now. And if you want more stories that peel back the digital gloss and get to the heart of what makes us human, subscribe, hit the bell, pass it on, and help keep these stories alive in a world still trying to forget itself. Until next time, stay awake, stay real,